To tell you about what OSEHRA is doing in the open source domain from the perspective of being in the kitchen, so to speak. Rather than talking about principles, I'd like to tell you what it is that we do managing an open source project that has a global reach. A little bit about my personal history. 1989, I was launching a digital imaging project called IMAC, which eventually became known as PACS. In those days, I used to come to the UK rather often to work with Dr. Glass in Health Ministry, as well as Professor Ellison at Hammersmith. And so I used to burn a lot of miles over Atlantic Ocean those days. And it's interesting to note that I am in the Skunkworks, because in 1996 I was head of a team to really put together a skunkwork to develop a teleradiology system. Then I was an academic those days. Actually, I sent my laboratory people to Bosnia to set up a global teleradiology system that became the basis for military PACS project called MDIS. And do you know why PACS is a regulated medical device? Because we were trying to write an acquisition document for the Department of Defense to buy PACS. Then the acquisition people says, you know, it just sounds like another Office product. So why don't we just put it through an acquisition process of buying computers and software for Office management system? So we had to run over to FDA and ask them, guys, give me some sort of a document or letter saying this is a medical device. So that's how PACS became a medical device. Well, what is the, one can talk about open source in many different ways. I think the essence is the open collaboration, but it facilitates the maximum individual creativity. Because once you're in a mature open source development environment, you cannot hide. You know who makes the best code, you know who breaks the code. So in a way, it really identifies the best and the worst. And also, depending on how you deploy the process, it really encourages the end user engagement. And again, everything is exposed, so it really goes through a peer review almost real time. So the work we have to do is how to really orchestrate the individual activities to create community activity. This is where the rules of engagement is very important. So individual contributions are noted for the good of the rest of the community. So in a mature environment, you do end up with the best possible product, and you do end up with the lowest possible cost, and long-term sustainability is achieved by having a vibrant community. Okay, so I showed this couple of pictures to underscore the fact that individual creativity and leadership is important, but it is important within the context of a greater community. One can look at open source ecosystem in three parts: the community itself, software, and governance or development environment. All three have to come together for a successful operation. OSEHRA is a non-for-profit organization established by Veterans Affairs at the United States about 3 years ago, largely to introduce rapid innovation into their electronic health record known as VISTA. We have independent board of directors. Government participates in certain discussions, but they have no control over our destiny. So we have a liaison relationship with a couple of government agencies. We are basically a membership-based organization. Our mission is to support our members and corporate members. I'm really delighted at this meeting. Several of our corporate members are participating. It is our job to help them to provide you best possible product and service. Where do we fit in a big scheme of things within open source community? Many of you are familiar with the Linux Foundation. OpenStack is a cloud computing a non-for-profit organization largely established by NASA. then there are a number of open source communities around certain product lines. Geneva is an interesting group. It is a group of car manufacturers focused on developing software for entertainment information systems for cars. It's led by BMW and Hyundai Motor and a few other car companies. Basically, they said cost of software development for cars may exceed 10% very soon, and they cannot keep up. So they are opening up the software side of the car industry. It's called the Geneva Foundation. So this graph shows in terms of who decides, certain key decisions, and it shows that OSEHRA is somewhere to the right-hand side, having the maximum flexibility. We have about 2,200 individual members. We would like to have about 10,000 members eventually, and we have a small staff, about 15 people. My office is in Arlington, Virginia, across the river from White House, you can see in the picture, and we burn about $5 million a year. This is a list of our corporate members. Okay, DSS is represented here, InterSystem is represented here, and also MedSphere is represented here. And you can see that these are the companies that will actually provide the support. We do not provide support or maintenance or service or training. So we provide the best possible code. We also have non-for-profit organizations such as MITRE Corporation, Oroville Hospital, and academic institutions and other partners. Let's talk about one of the three components, software. Okay, you have to start with some software. Okay, so software is the main instrument of community engagement. Okay. This is a bit of a busy slide, but I'd like to show you what really happens with the software. We get initial code contribution from government agencies, corporations. MedSphere, for instance, and DSS are the very active participants contributing their code to our environment. Academic contribute our code. Then it comes into our code base, and we go through a certification process. And I'll explain to you what the certification process is. And so we make these codes available on our website, in our repository. And anyone can come and download the code and use the code any way you see fit. You don't even have to be a member. Okay? But the customer might need the code or functionalities that we do not have. Okay, for instance, in Vista, we don't have a billing system. Then the billing system will have to integrate it into our code base, then becomes a commercial product. Open source by definition is commercial because it is offered to the end user under commercial contracts. Now there are organizations that will do it on their own. Okay, they might have engineers who understand Vista and they try to build a system on their own. There are a number of examples like that. So the code becomes a commercial product under a commercial contract with warranties and all those things that goes with it. And along the way, if you make new functionalities or fix the problems we have, we encourage them to contribute the code back to us. So this cycle continues. What do we mean by certification? The purpose of a certification is to improve the quality of code and to improve the documentation. So let's say Dr. Billings wants to contribute his code to us. The first thing we check is ownership. Is he authorized to contribute code to us? Okay, so we have a contribution agreement, and we also check the dependencies. Let's say if I use the open source code, but I have to pay a license to, let's say, Oracle, then I need to know, because those end users need to know dependencies. Then we apply Apache 2 license. I'll come to this a little later. Okay. Then we check the documentation in terms of a requirement document, documentation code. Do they have a testing routines, maintenance document, user manuals, or tutorials? Okay. let's say in order for source code to be completely open, usable by any trained individuals, you need all this documentation. So that's why it is part of our certification process. Then we do a certain amount of testing ourselves, mainly on the quality of software, not the functionality. The functionality testing is going to be done by the providers or the resellers of Vista as represented here. When you pass all these things, we put a certification. In fact, we have a leveled certification because sometimes we deal with the legacy code that some of these things are missing. But it's functional and safe, then we pass it as a level 1 certification. License discussion is almost like a religious discussion. You can have an unlimited, unending conversation, but we absolutely defend Apache 2 license. Okay, this is a diagram done by Dr. Wheeler at Defense University in Washington, D.C., how different licenses are compatible with what license. Okay, so if you have an Apache 2 license, okay, you can take the code from us and apply different license if you choose to. But if you're going to make a contribution back to us, we will not take any code that has restrictions. Because if once you get into restricted code, down the road, you get into a religious war, and we absolutely avoid that. Okay. Oftentimes, when we talk about open source at the beginning, we focus so much about what code, what application. But the power of open source comes more in the area of what to do with the code. That is, you have to adopt a set of codes, then you have to adapt, make changes to fit your need, anglicize, whatever. Then you have to apply new innovations. So this adoption, adaptation, innovation is a cycle, and as the community matures, process matured, software matures, this cycle speeds up faster and faster. Therefore, one can reduce the development time. OSEHRA offers certain code base, okay, and it's called OSEHRA Vista. In fact, this is not in conflict with any of our partners. The resellers of Vista, the engineers of Mesosphere, DSS, and other companies, we work together to define the core functionalities of Vista that can be standardized down the road, so that each company can focus on the innovative modules that they're, innovation modules, and also whatever enhancement that they can offer to meet the customer needs. Okay? This system can be built, but I wouldn't recommend to use this in a hospital right away, okay? Because you need to have additional capabilities to make the system work. For instance, VA doesn't have pediatric cases. The VA doesn't deal with pediatric patients. So if you have a pediatrics needs, you have to find that. Billing, we don't offer that, so you have to get that on your own or through our commercial partners. Managing the community, it's not easy. There's a collaboration, there's competition, innovation, and a lot of networking going on, sometimes a lot of complaints, and sometimes give and take. But managing the community in such a way, emphasizing individual innovation, and understanding business interest of competing partners, but going into common direction, it's a really essence of our mission. As I said, we're a membership-driven organization. We do not compete. For instance, UK is planning to do something in open source. We won't be competing for that contract. We will support you, especially we'll support our partners. Okay? And we support our members by sharing efforts so that the development costs can be reduced, testing code can be reduced, and we do a broad marketing effort, again, to help support the open source concept. Okay? Then what the hell do you do? For instance, we don't do our own development work. We do minimum amount of development work to make sure that the code is, clean. But it's done, most of the work is done by work groups. Okay, we have maybe 15 different work groups and each work group had participation from government engineers and corporate engineers, independent consultants, and volunteers. For instance, we have architectural work group, product management work group, university affiliate program, certification work group. For instance, we broadcast this is how we're going to certify. We don't just decide. We take it to our members. Does this fit with your business model? In such a way, everybody can get the benefit. Imaging work group, interoperability work group was formed a year ago. They didn't do anything. We shut it down. Now it's coming back up. So that's how these things are done. So for instance, on any given afternoon, there are 2 or 3 work group activities going on, mostly using WebEx. These are some implementation models. Okay, Oroville Hospital started with a World Vista code, then they retained a number of consultants, then they implemented the code very successfully, and they're making code contribution to us. State of North Carolina, they retained a certain number of consultants, and State of New York, 34 mental health clinics. They went and hired a large systems integrator, supported by some of our corporate members, so that they'll have one large company that really takes responsibility of completing the task, and maintaining the system down the road. Lutheran Medical Center started with the code from one of our corporate partners and made a great progress in engaging physician members in making innovative code for their application. India has a couple of interesting software implementations as well. State of Tennessee is contemplating installation of Vista. Exactly what they will do, we do not know. In fact, they came to us and said, OSEHRA, can you help us X, Y, Z? He said, no, we cannot help you X, Y, Z. We can help you to get started, but beyond that, you'll have to go seek support from our members. I'd like to share just one interesting thing that happened. A couple of months ago, a graduate student who was doing a classroom exercise with the Vista code base identified a rather interesting vulnerability problem. Community was alerted, VA was notified, then we notified our corporate members who provide Vista to their customers. And because of the sensitivity of the sensitive nature of the problem, we all agreed to do a project under non-disclosure agreement. Then engineers from multiple companies, engineers from VA, engineers from Indian Health Service, engineers from the network of consultants all got together, worked together to develop the software to fix the problem. And the code was tested all different environments before it got released back into the government as well as to various customer sites. So this was one of the more interesting examples how engineers working in oftentimes competing environments came together and developed the code and tested the code. In the United States, government engineers working directly with engineers in private sector is very difficult, and they're afraid. But in this particular case, the VA leadership gave them a full approval saying, go ahead, you need those capabilities from the private sector and bring the software back into the government. So this project is, I think it's about 99% completed now. We also manage a sizable IT infrastructure. That is, we have a website that does the software quality and certification, and we have a code review website, technical journal that takes in the code and documents. Certainly we have a website, educational resources, Git repositories. Then we mirror these things at least a couple of times. And this entire IT infrastructure, if you have to start from scratch, it might take maybe about $3 million or so. Fortunately, we have a very good partner in New York that provided most of the basic capabilities. Then we sort of customize it for OSEHRA use. A little bit of VA. Okay, some of you may know, VA has about 152 hospitals. And the Vista, some people say VA may have spent $3 to $4 billion to develop the Vista code over the last 30 years or so. Then they released the code. They've been releasing this code as a public domain code for a number of years, and that's how some of the successful business operations took place. So now our job is to bring all these activities under one umbrella so that we can actually leverage each other's contribution. Okay? So when the code gets released to public domain, certain parts are cut, redacted. That's why our commercial partners and ourselves had to do additional work to patch it back together so it would run. Okay? This is a map that was produced by Open Health News, showing where the Vista installations are around the world. They've identified about 2,000 sites so far. Okay? Now this is the vision that VA has. VA would like to see OSEHRA manage their master code base down the road. Right now, VA maintains that eventually they'd like to put it outside so that public will have a full access and thus become a source of innovation. Next year, they're planning to get meaningful use certification done. And also, VA continuously releases the contract to have new modules, new code written. As the new codes are written, the contractors are required to commit the code to our environment and for us to go through a certification process. In fact, just this afternoon I was reading a news release saying that the VA issued a sizable contract to redo the user interface altogether. So those kind of codes will show up in our website. It'll be made available to anyone who would like to deploy it. And also VA has a backlog about 3,000 soft pieces of code somewhere. It's called Class 3, and they would like to get it released to the community. I'm sure most of them are not useful, but there will be some very useful codes that one can take advantage of. So current effort we're supporting for VA is they're in the process of standardizing the code base throughout their 150 some odd hospitals. They have a new initiative called VA Innovation. Then they're beginning to take the code that's in a OSEHRA domain back into the system. And also, getting the new developers of code contributing to OSEHRA is a big deal. So we're trying to iron out the process as to what it is we're going to require for us to accept the code, and then what we have to do to pass the code back into VA as well as commercial applications. Okay. So lessons learned. The permissive license is essential for long-term survivability. Effective governance is important. You have to make sure that you're all going to one direction. Sometimes it's not easy, and you need a lot of cooperation for your members. And think of adopt, adapt, and innovate. Don't just get stuck on adoption only, okay? And also try to use an existing infrastructure. If UK is interested in launching some open source project, please focus on governance issues first before you start investing money on infrastructure. And also think of community. If you have a great software but have no community, then who is going to do the work? It is not an open source project that is sustainable. You have to have a community. Okay? And also start thinking about software development and management tools. Okay? Because if you have efficient software tools for development, testing, and management, it will make your developers' life easy. Then they will gradually migrate to your environment. Okay? And do whatever you can to minimize the chances of forking. Forking may happen. In fact, it may be a good idea for some forking to happen, but be aware of it and see whether you can harness all that energy back into your community. Okay. Well, I show you this picture because that's a Washington monument. That's a national monument, but that got broken because we had an earthquake. they're doing the renovation, but it's all lit up. Okay, so in a way, OSEHRA operation is really focused on transparency and trying to have community working together to fix the monument, improve the monument. Well, thank you for your attention. Yeah.